Oh, hello everyone. How are you? I am so excited to be sitting down today and going through with you guys my top 10 books that I read slash listened to in 2024. Overall, I would say 2024 was a really great year for reading. I definitely think one of the biggest standouts of the year that I noticed in my reading habits was definitely obviously reading a crap ton more sapphic romance. I really discovered that I have a passion for the genre. And along the same lines as that, I felt like 2024 was a really great year for me discovering new to me authors, and that was really fun and I really loved that part of it so much. With that out of the way, like I said before, this video is just going through my top 10 favorite books of the year. This was very hard to narrow down. I ended the year at basically 149 books. My last book that I read of the year, I didn't log on Goodreads enough in time, so it counted towards my 2025 goal, but that's okay. I wanted to read at least 150, but I started reading something that I'll talk about later, I guess, and that really took up my time, so I couldn't even get to 150 books, but I was very, very close. Yeah, I think that's enough for this intro. A very simple, fun video today. We're just going to go through my top 10 books of the year 2024. And my number 11 pick is going to be Second Edition by Cleo White. I just wanted to throw this in here because this author and this book are criminally underrated, and if you love forbidden age gap romances, you will love this. This is a single dad nanny book. She actually ends up becoming the au pair to his daughter, and they spend the summer in France because he is French. This is between Ellis and what was the girl's name? I don't remember, but I just know that I wanted to be her. This book was so great. I cannot wait to read more from her. She is a girl after my own heart with her writing. She literally writes a whole bunch of quick age gap romances. I meant to read her holiday one, forgot to, but I'll get to it eventually. She has a book coming up for Valentine's Day that I'm very excited for. And again, if you love single dad nanny, forbidden, spicy romances, you will love this. The aesthetics of this book were also so perfect. I loved that French chateau setting. It was very unique. I loved the main guy in here. His daughter was adorable. The main girl was great. And the cover also for the book is gorgeous. So if you haven't heard of Cleo yet, please put her on your radar for 2025. Her books are great. Okay, now we are getting into my top 10 picks. And I will say, I feel like after my top 3, the ranking of these could go in any order depending on the day. I am just going to look at the ranking that I did in my Instagram post. But let's just say my number 10 favorite book of the year was Wild Eyes by Elsie Silver. Another single dad nanny book because, you know, I have my favorite tropes and I'm going to read them and I'm going to love them and they are going to do it for me every single time. I don't need to talk about this book too much because the chances are you have probably already read it, as Elsie Silver is one of the most popular authors that we have right now for good reason. Her books are amazing. I love her so much. She never misses. And my man Weston, I should say, was just so sweet and the perfect golden retriever single dad. And Skylar is a singer. She's a very famous singer who is in this town because she's actually going to be recording at the recording studio place that's mentioned in the first book in this series, Wild Love. I'm excited for the third book. This is a full series of small town single dads, which I mean, Elsie, one thing Elsie Silver is going to write. It's an incredible single dad. Loved the relationship in here. I love that Skylar had a talking bird. It really made me laugh. I thought the small town vibes were just so charming. His 2 kids were really great. I loved their little dynamic. Forced proximity because she stays with him. And it was just so fun, and I had the best time listening to the audiobook, so it is my number 10 favorite book of 2024. At number 9, an author who I really would love for you to put on your radar because I love her books, and again, she's a very wonderful person. She's very lovely to me. We have Where We Belong by Ashley Munoz. This is the second book in her, I think it's called the Stone Riders MC series. If that's wrong, let me see if I can zoom in, which means it's a motorcycle club series, and if you know, you know. I love Motorcycle Club books. I actually didn't finish the series even though they're all out on audio. I actually only listened to the first two and then I have to listen to the last two. I love this series like so much. Like the first book I really enjoyed, but this book truly blew me away. And after I read it, I was like, oh no, this is easily one of my favorite books of the year. I think about this book all the time. I say I have the memory of a peanut. So if a book is really memorable for me, that's very, very important. And that's actually a big factor as to how I like rank my top favorite books of the year is based on how often do I think about them, how much do I remember from them. And this book, it has so many standout moments and I loved it. This series I would suggest to read in order. There is a connecting story throughout all of them. So this is book 2. First book is called Where We Started. And this book is the girl, she's the best friend of the girl from book 1. And then this guy is friends with the other guy in book 1 and he's now the new head of the MC. I believe he's literally the new leader and they have just a romance where they kind of start off as friends or like they just have this like connection with each other. They kind of bicker, they banter. It does also, I think, turn into a forced proximity situation. There's just a lot going on in this book, but their dynamic was so good. The way they would get jealous over each other, the way the male MC was so obsessed with the main girl and just so protective. There's good like suspense in here a little bit and I just ate it up like candy. I love this book so much. If you are a dark romance person, a motorcycle club romance, you like a little bit of suspense in your books, definitely check this series out. They're not the darkest books in the world, but again, they're that motorcycle club vibe and they're just so good. You'll love them. I know you will. For 8th book I'm going to put is Passenger Princess by Morgan Elizabeth. I mean, look at the cover. It's me in a cover. This is also just me in a book that when I knew that she had this book coming out, I was incredibly excited because I just knew it was going to really connect with me like a lot of Morgan's books do. We share a brain most of the time. So when she said she was doing a pageant princess, like pageant girl, bodyguard romance, I said, thank you so much. That book was written for me personally. I know it was. Basically, this main girl, she wins her pageant and she has to go on a tour across the country. We have her bodyguard. It's very, very cute. He's very protective of her. They're like polar opposites, but then they, you know, obviously connect. And it's just a really perfect, sweet rom-com. If you love spicy rom-com books and you haven't checked out Morgan Elizabeth, what are you doing? I know you will love her book. Number 7, we have Lost and Lassoed by Lila Sage. I mean, come on. Lila Sage is one of my favorite authors. I hope you know this. Again, also one of my favorite people. She's lovely. And this book, which is finally We Are at Gus and Teddy, 3rd book in her Rebel Blue Ranch series, is another single dad nanny. Teddy is the best friend of Gus's sister, who is book 1 in, I almost said Lost and Lassoed, Done and Dusted. Then the 2nd book, Swift and Saddled, is Gus's brother Wes. And now we're finally at Gus, the grumpy single dad. He's a great dad, okay? He's just a little grumpy. It's fine. Him and Teddy have that enemies to lovers, like bickering relationship, but you know that there's just an attraction between them that cannot be denied. And I ate this book up so quickly, like I do with every Lila Sage book. Her books are just like to the point. They flow really beautifully. I also honestly could put Swift and Saddled right along with Lost and Lassoed in the 7th place because I loved both of the books so much. I guess I liked Lost and Lassoed a little bit more because I really connected to Teddy and like what she was going through in her life. It was very similar to like what I experienced. So she was just an extremely relatable character to me in so many ways. Thought this book was wonderful. Again, if you're a small town romance person, I'm sure you've read Lila Sage before, but if you haven't yet, make this the year that you read her books because I love them so much. Here comes the sapphic romance. Here it comes. Not the only one on this list, but in the 6th spot, we have Tryst, 6 Venom by Penelope Douglas, which is so funny. I did not mean to do that, but we do have the number 666 going on. This book, as you can see, is a big boy. And if you know me, you know I don't like long books. So if I say a long book is one of my favorites, that's how you know that it's something very special. And number 1, this book I highly suggest you do on audio. It was a sensational audiobook. I loved it so much. This is a darker sapphic romance between 2 girls who are actually on the lacrosse team together in high school, and they're seniors in high school. I know some people don't like that P-Doug and their characters are a little bit on the younger side. I didn't mind it. But so they do have that enemies to lovers. And the thing is, this book so much happens in this book. It is a bully romance. There's also a plot point about them trying to do something in the town. I don't know if it's like save something from a swamp. I don't even know. I don't remember. I know I said that I put all these books on this list because I remember them, but please forgive me when it comes to this one because this book is really long. What connected me to this book is I could not get enough of Liv and Clay, okay? I really couldn't. Like, I loved their enemies to lovers. I love bully romances. I do. I'll say it. I'll say it. Girls were actually fighting in this book. I ate it up. There's some really fun suspense at the end here, and I just thought it was so hot. Like, I would re-listen to this in a heartbeat, and again, for it being something that's on the longer side, that's unheard of for me, but I just had the funnest time with this. It's one of my favorite sapphic books that I've ever read. It's definitely a sapphic book that I feel like a lot of people have actually read because it's by a very, very popular author, which I do love to see. But if you haven't read this book from Penelope Douglas yet and you enjoy their other books, please check it out. Their new book, Five Brothers, is connected to this because it's actually the brothers of the girl. Which one is it in here? Is it Liv? The one that has the brothers? I think it might be Liv. So it's her brothers that are then, you know, in P. Doug's newest books. So I definitely have Five Brothers high on my radar because I need to see my girlies again. At number 5, we have another book by a new to me author who I'm just obsessed with, and that is Burnout by Rebecca Genshak. But this book I was reached out to. They were like, oh, hi Kelly, do you want like an audio arc of this book? Like, do you want a PR box? And I was like, sure, I love the cover. I love the vibe. It's motocross and a gymnast. I'm like, sign me up. I listened to this audiobook in basically one day. I think this book is like good girl, bad boy excellence. Like, I loved their dynamic so much. This book was just a perfect romance to me. That's why it's one of my top rated, highest on the list books of the year, because I thought it was perfect. It was like the perfect length. Didn't go on for too long. It's spicy. It was romantic. It had me giggling and kicking my feet. I feel like out of all of the books on this list, maybe aside from the book that I actually have at like number 1 and number 4, this book had me like swooning the most, smiling. I was so giddy. I'm just like, this is why I read romance books, so that I can read something as fun and charming as this book. I also love the follow-up of this book that's called Playbook, and then the newest book comes out at the end of January called The Comeback, and I love this series so much. I love Rebecca. I love her aesthetic. She's another author. We have a very similar style. She's very girly. She loves pink. I really understand her. I love her. And if you haven't checked this out, please do. Again, obviously, I really love the audiobook, and I just was such a fan. Like, such a massive fan. At number 4, we have In a Jam by Kate Canterbury. This is my special edition from Eternal Embers that is literally still in the plastic. My original copy is there somewhere. I have a couple editions of this book. I think this book is so special, and another book that I'm telling you, you must do the audiobook for. I rated this as actually my top audiobook of the year because it was just life-changing on audio. Jason Clarke is the male main character in this book, and he is obviously my number 1 favorite male narrator, but he is just phenomenal. Like, you have to listen to this book on audio. I know you'll love it. This book is A Marriage of Convenience, which is another one of my favorite tropes, and it is between a teacher and a grumpy, I think he's technically a farmer. Is he a farmer? They have like rivaling farms because basically she inherits her family's tulip farm, and when she gets there, I'm pretty sure this guy is her neighbor. I think that's what happens. Please forgive me if I'm a little bit foggy on this one because I actually read this book so long ago, like truly so long ago. The daughter in this book, even though it's technically not his biological daughter, it's his niece that I believe he has adopted and taken in. She was so funny. She was a real highlight of the book. Like, the found family element in here is great. It is definitely a slow burn. It's another book that's a little bit on the longer side, but it really was worth it. I just thought it was so beautiful. I love that the girl it was a family tulip farm. I have a tulip tattoo, so I thought that was really special. I just remember when I listened to this audiobook, I was so obsessed. I was so sucked in. I was locked in. I was seated. This is another book that I would absolutely re-listen to in a heartbeat. And I actually am debating on if I want to, because there is a sequel coming out to this book that doesn't follow these characters, but it follows characters who are connected to this book. So I'm like, I kind of want a refresher because again, I read this book like so long ago. This is again is one of I think I read this book in January of 2024. I think I did. If not January, February, it was definitely around that time. I've said this before in the past. I know cowboys are hot, but we need more books that take place on the farms. At number 3, you shouldn't be surprised that she's here. I'm certainly not surprised that she's here. It's Asking for Trouble by Gianna Darling. I mean, listen, it's an entry in one of my favorite series of all time. Of course, it was going to be in my top books of the year. But I'm shocked but not shocked that it is ranked at number 3. But if I'm really thinking about it, this book I had the best time reading. I think about Blue and Boner 24 effing 7. I love this book. I think this book is underrated in the series. I think people moved on way too quickly. Help, I'm still at the restaurant. I loved it. I thought it was perfect, obviously. It's a shorter book for the Fallen Men series. Like, she calls it a novella, even though it's basically a full-length book. It's just a lot shorter than the other Fallen Men books. But I still think you got Blue and Boner completely. You understood their relationship. I loved how obsessed Boner was with Blue right off the bat. This is one of those situations where our main girl is working in like a gas station, convenience store. Something happens and he like saves her from an incident there. They go on the run together. She is actually connected to a rival of the MC that Boner is a part of, the Fallen. It was just so messy. It's so juicy. I loved Blue. She also like wants to be like a cosmetologist, and like I, as a makeup artist, I connected with her a little bit in that way. She loves her makeup and her glam, and I just loved her so much. Like, definitely one of my favorite Fallen girls for sure. I love that she has blue hair, and I loved it. Okay, it was perfect. Again, can you technically read it as a standalone? Sure. Should you read the entire Fallen Men series? Absolutely. Absolutely you should. Like, why are you watching me right now? Like, go read the Fallen Men series. Go read the Fallen Men series. I love you, Gianna Darling. Okay, bye. My second favorite book of the year. I am lumping these two together because it is a duet, even though technically the second book in the duet is out of print. So that's why this is a little hard to talk about, because this book, False Start, has been taken off Amazon. The author is reworking it. So technically this doesn't count, but obviously it's a duet. I read them together and I love them. While I know I'm not talking about False Start, I will just say this book in the duet is the romance book, but the first book crossed over, which again now is a standalone, and this book can technically be a standalone. I mean, it definitely ends on a shocking ending, but if you want to just read it as a standalone, you can. This is a coming out story by Santana Knox. This is obviously, as you can tell, about someone who does roller derby. And number one, it reminded me the whole time of the movie Whip It. If you've never seen it, it's a movie that has Elliot Page, Drew Barrymore is in it. I think Kristen Wiig is in it. It's just a movie about roller derby, and I thought of them the entire time. And I meant to rewatch that movie, but maybe I couldn't find it on streaming while I was reading this duet. But anyways, that doesn't matter. What matters is that this is one of the most beautiful books I've ever read in my life. Maybe it's because I'm gay and this book is about having a gay awakening. I just found it to be so gorgeous. So our main girl, Nina, has a terrible accident, and she, is getting back into roller derby after being, benched for years after not doing it, again being in a really bad accident, and she is learning how to do it again. And obviously she goes back to her old place where she used to skate. She is back in town and she connects with all of the girls there. There is one girl there in particular that she has a connection with. It's kind of like a little enemies to lovers story. And again, even though I'm not saying this is a romance, because technically the ending of the book doesn't make it a romance, so I'm not gonna be that person and say it's a romance book when technically it's not, but there is definitely like some element of romance in here. And it's a coming out story. That's the whole point. So again, I'm not going to label this book as a romance, even though, again, as it is a coming out story, it's obviously a girl realizing her feelings for another girl. Regardless, this book really is very special to me. I cried so hard reading both books. Okay, I had a meltdown reading both books. I gave both books infinite stars because I was so moved by them. I think you need to read this book. I think it is essential reading. It's a quick read too. It's on Kindle Unlimited. My goal is to read way more from Santana in 2025. I've read some of her dark romance books. I need to read more. She doesn't have that many books in her backlist yet. I would love to support her and read her other books because I really loved this book so, so much. Like I said, very, very, very special to me. And finally, I don't know where my physical copy went for this book. It's hiding somewhere, but my top book of the year is another book that I know you've seen on everyone's wrap-up lists because it's that amazing, and that is Play Along by Miss Liz Tomforday. Miss Elizabethan Tomforday, as I refer to her, because she is a master at what she does. And I say this every time I talk about her books, but Liz is truly one of the best romance authors that we have in the game right now. She writes the best couples. I binged, caught up, and Play Along back to back because I remember I was getting the ALC for Play Along and I was like, oh, I need to read Caught Up, like I meant to get to it. So I listened to my audiobook that I had of that. Then I jumped into Play Along, and Isaiah Rhodes, listen, at first my favorite book in this series, and I said one of my favorite romance books ever, is still the right move. Okay, I love Ryan Shea and Indy. I love that book so much. Would reread it in a heartbeat. But this one was really special. Maybe also because it's one of my favorite tropes ever, which is Married in Vegas, another book that has to do with like a marriage. I love books that have to do with marriages, okay? And this is an instance where Indy is on the, like, she's not a doctor for the baseball team that Isaiah's on. What is she? Is it like physical therapy? I can't remember. Basically, she's in one career path right now, but she wants to be like higher up. And because she is a woman, it's like harder for her to get there. So it deals with her struggles with that. But basically, these two have a history with each other. They know each other. Isaiah is obsessed with Kennedy. And one day when they're both in Vegas, well, one night, they have a wild night and they end up getting married. And they decide to stick with the marriage for a little bit, and so much happens that I don't even want to spoil. But just know it was beautiful. And Isaiah is so down bad for Kennedy, and he really like teaches her a lot, and it was just so beautiful. The ending had me sobbing. Okay, you know what's funny is like I basically predicted something that was going to happen at the end, and when it happened I still cried anyway because it's like there's something small, not small, there's just something mentioned in the plot about these characters that you're like, oh, okay, I wonder if like something like this will happen down the road with it. Then you kind of forget that that's a thing. Then at the end she brings it back and you're just like crying. Like I was sobbing. Okay, I was sobbing on the floor. So beautiful, so perfect. I just, again, if Liz writes it, I will probably not only read it, I will probably be giving it like 5 million stars. Okay, this book was just, without a doubt, one of the most beautiful books I read all year, and that is why it's my top favorite. But again, there's a big chance you probably already read it, but if you haven't yet, here is your sign. So that was it, friends. Those were my top favorite books of 2024. I am very excited for 2025. Again, 2025 reading is actually already off to a really great start, in my opinion. My goal for this year is to definitely do more monthly wrap-ups. I promise I want to be more active on YouTube. I say this every time I make a video these days. Sorry. But I love you guys so much. What were some of your favorite reads of 2024? As always, all of my socials are linked down below. Instagram, TikTok, give me a follow there, Goodreads and all that. And I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!